Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. One of the things I've noticed as I research and talk about storytelling in the modern era is that people often discuss storytelling as if it was modern day myth. There is a belief, especially among the more conservative minded writers out there, that storytelling is a pillar of society that Americans have raised up to replace the role of religion in our modern secular society. They speak of the hard-boiled detective, the superhero, or the explorer and archaeologist as if they were some kind of mythic totem which we hold up as a symbol of what we desire to be. The proposal is that these modern-day myths are secular myths that embody the virtues we want to be at the heart of our modern society. Thus, it is proposed that rather than try and have our modern-day myths be a part of political angling or agenda pushing, we should leave them as they are and admire them for the lessons they teach us about who we should be. This is a very noble sounding sentiment, but ultimately, whenever I hear it, it rings hollow to me. In the TV series Star Trek Deep Space Nine, one of the key ongoing plot points is a rivalry between two groups of super beings known as the Prophets and the Pa-Wraiths. Both of these super beings are viewed as deities on the planet Bajor. The prophets are viewed as benevolent deities, and the Pa-Wraiths as hostile deities. I hesitate to say evil, because we never really learn anything about the teachings of either group. We know that the prophets supposedly wish for the prospering of Bajor, and the Pa-Wraiths were cast out from among the prophets for reasons unknown, but eventually they reveal they intend to scour the universe with fire, or at least the universe outside of Bajor. Even that is unclear. Ultimately, one of the things that prevents me from crediting Deep Space Nine with as much depth and nuance as other people seem to give it is how cartoonishly simplistic its take on the Bajoran religion is. It presents us with almost no moral teachings, no philosophy, no contrasting visions. It's very flat, it's very dull, it's very uninteresting. It is the embodiment of the modern day myth attitude to storytelling. Just saying that stories are intended to embody virtues and aspirations says nothing about what those virtues and aspirations should be. Saying that our stories should bring us together does not say what they should bring us together around. You see, ancient myths often called people together around a tragedy, a tragic flaw. Consider Narcissus, who stared at himself so long he starved to death. His myth draws people together around a warning, not to value yourself too highly. The myth of Cupid and Psyche draws us together around a story of a person who betrays trust in her husband and then must struggle very much to win it back. It does speak to perseverance, but it is also a warning that trust betrayed is very difficult to win back. The myth of Athena and Poseidon is intended to draw people together around a nation-state, Athens, and its identity as a nation of wisdom and culture. Clearly, ancient myths could draw us around and get us invested in a number of different kinds of ideas. Modern storytelling also presents modern-day myths. That's true. However, the belief that all we have to be is a modern-day myth is incredibly short-sighted because the mythology of the modern day is class struggle, it is race struggle, it is oppressor versus oppressed. Every story in the modern-day mythos draws us around the idea that there is a massive system oppressing a downtrodden class. That is the idea, the core dogma of the modern-day secular mythos. The people who complain about the collapse of storytelling and pine for the days of the myths left behind fail to recognize that a new mythology has come along and devoured the old. We are not merely dealing with people who want to put politics in their storytelling, who see their gender or sexual identity as integral to constructing a narrative. We are not looking at a social experiment conducted by people who are trying to grab power. We are looking at the fundamental dogma that underpins a new mythology that the modern-day storytellers are constructing before our very eyes. I write stories because I believe that duty, self-sacrifice, and courage in the face of adversity are best for human nature. I put those things in stories because I want to explore how they play out in different situations. And I want the lessons that I have learned both from history and my own life to be preserved in these very entertaining and interesting forms for people further down the road to look at and think over. And I am not so arrogant as to believe people writing stories that totally disgust me with their moral messaging and with their poor construction and with their blatant moralizing are any different from me. Mythology is important to human beings because all people require a moral foundation for their lives. The simple reality is Maslow's hierarchy of needs is completely opposite to human psychology. From the earliest traces of civilization on Earth, the first things people built were temples. The first stories they told were about the moral foundations of their society. From the rivalry between Athena and Poseidon, all the way down to George Washington and the cherry tree, we have told stories about the underpinnings of our society. Make no mistake, the modern mythology being built today that has undercut heroic storytelling, that has undercut virtues like perseverance and hard work and forgiveness, and that is elevating identity over action, is not something as simple-minded as the insertion of politics into storytelling. It is the introduction of a new set of values, which the mythology will then draw us around and bind us to. In the face of that, the mythology of the prophets and the pah-wraiths is always going to fail. It is too simplistic. It is too flat. It is too childish. The new dogma that underlies the new mythology must be met with something other than a secular, empty mythology that just binds us together as a secular society. Athena did not merely set the tone and direction of Athenian culture. She also kicked Poseidon out of the country. If we're really going to create a modern-day mythos that is stronger and more appealing than the identities and power struggles of the new mythos, then the idea of this very broad tent mythology that everyone can buy into at least a little bit is not going to work. Mythology, after all, is partly religious. It has to be. And in order for a religion to mean anything, well, there has to be a doctrine and some level of adherence to it. We see that very clearly in the modern progressive mythology as well. If we were to try and create a mythology without this very important element to it, well, we wouldn't have a very good mythology in the end. Now, I don't have a problem with religion or mythology. As I have said before on this channel, I am a Christian. This I believe to be a myth that is true, factually and spiritually. I also don't have a problem with storytelling that is of a mythological nature. But I do think that trying to put all storytelling on the mythological level is a mistake. And it's going to result in a hollowing out of our storytelling, just as I think the increasing adherence to the modern progressive mythology has hollowed out modern storytelling. There is much more to storytelling than just myth. And if we focus on that with the same myopic intensity of the people who have already wrecked storytelling, we're not going to undo any of the damage they've done. And while I appreciate the importance of myth to building up a person and a community, When we focus on that exclusively, I think we miss the role of storytelling as a shelter and a place of rest. A brief respite from the hard life around you. A chance to enjoy something well constructed and beautifully told. Michelangelo di Caravaggio was a painter who worked in Renaissance Italy. One of his major patrons was the Catholic Church. In this era, when so many people were illiterate, the Church had developed a powerful symbolic language to communicate the stories of their religion to the masses. Things like halos and the way hands were held in paintings. In this way, they constructed a mythology around the truths of their religion. However, Caravaggio dispensed with most of the trappings and symbology and attempted to embody those truths through his own painting and his own techniques. In doing so, he revolutionized the art of painting forever. The religious iconography of the Catholic Church did not go away, but the art form of painting became deeper, richer, more meaningful, and more enduring. If the modern-day storyteller focuses entirely on mythology, he ignores all of the innovation, depth, and richness of technique that took storytelling beyond mythology for the past 2,000 years. Thus, while I believe the story circle, which is how most myths propagated in the early days, is a vital part of recapturing and understanding storytelling, I don't believe mythology is the correct form of storytelling to return to, assuming we should return to any type of storytelling at all. I suspect what we actually need is another Caravaggio, this time for storytelling, to take the myths, strip them down to their truths, polish them up, and represent them in a way that once again grabs people's attentions and imaginations. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use them as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.